You are most welcome back to the Matchbook NFL betting podcast. A terrific super wildcard weekend for the team. 7 selections, 4 winners, 2 losses, and 1 push. Drew Dinsick, your best bet of the week was a push. Delighted to be joined, as you can see on screen right now, if you're joining us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, please do get in touch. Give us a couple of your comments, have a couple of questions for us on your outrights, by all means. Drew Dinsick at the top right of the screen, returning Mr. Rob Pizzola at the bottom right, and Fabian Sommer on the bottom left. Best bet came in last week for you, Suma. Rob, first to you, mate. We missed you last week, mate, but how was wildcard weekend and all for you?
It was pretty good overall. I mean, the sides I liked the most ended up coming through with Baltimore and the Rams. I was opposite of Drew. I know Drew liked the under in the Saints game, and I actually liked the over there, which was probably about 3 drives into the game. I was like, what have I done here? Like, the Bears might not. Suma actually warned me. I was messaging Suma midweek last week, and he's like, the Bears might score 3 points. And like he messaged me late in the third quarter when they were at 3 points, and he's like, this might actually come through. But overall, it was good. I mean, it was a winning week. I didn't quite get to 7 plays like you guys did last week. Sounds like you guys had all sorts of fun with wildcard weekend, but low volume winning week. I mean, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and the Bears team total under 17.5 was a wonderful look there as well. Props to Suma for flagging that one with us, because it was probably one that slipped my radar. But Suma, your best bet of the week, the Ravens, they did roll in Nashville.
Yeah, they rolled, but I gotta be honest, it pretty much came down to what we have said on the broadcast, that the Titans coaching staff might just run into a brick wall on early downs, and that's was basically the difference, and also a couple of fourth down decisions late in the game. So pretty much coaching disadvantage that came to full fruition in this game.
Yeah, and CEO and president of Ravens Stakeholders Incorporated, Mr. Drew Dinsick. Good weekend there, mate. The Ravens flock, they roll on to Buffalo this weekend.
Yeah. This is a big high leverage game for my futures book for sure. A win here by the Ravens, and I'm in the black for the season. A loss, and I'm going to need some other good things to work out for me here. But it was a big game against the Titans. It was fun to watch. It was, and I guess really, I think the winners of Super Wildcard Weekend were the fans. Number one, it was amazing having 6 football games Wildcard Weekend.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times Wildcard Weekend stinks. There's a couple of terrible games, and there's only 4. And we're like, man, I wish we could see some of the better teams. This year we had some of the better teams. It was awesome. And every matchup was good, I felt like, except for the Bears and the Saints. And, and the fans get a win because we have Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson all get their first playoff wins. The competitive balance in the AFC has been restored to a degree. This is not the Chiefs for the next generation. There's going to be some competitive, playoff games against Kansas City, which I am super excited about. And, and the losers were just conventional wisdom, terrible coaching decisions. And if that kind of affects some long-term positive change in the NFL, we all win.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot of them. Speaking of which, Tennessee as well. I don't know what the hell was going on there. And overbackers were just disgusted with that as well. It just never looked like that game was going over. Right. What we're going to do today, we're going to start from back to front again this week. We're going to start with the Bucs and Saints, and then the Browns and the Chiefs. And the reason we're doing that is if you're tuning in on Sunday, you're tuning into the podcast or the video, you get that content right away. Alternatively, if you're tuning in on Saturday and you want to get to Saturday's games, just scroll along, check the timestamps, and all those games will be there for you. Right, let's start off. And Rob, I want to start with you first, but I want to take a look at the betting in the Bucs and Saints. Let's have a look at the betting at Matchbook at the time of recording. On the money line, you can back the Bucs at 2.52, the Saints at just under 1.65. The Saints on the main handicap line, and there has been a lot of money around that Matchbook in the last 24 hours for New Orleans here, and it's down to 1.87 minus 3 and 52 is the total. And Rob, we're going to hear it ad nauseum this week. Obviously, with being divisional foes, they played each other twice this year. But they played each other twice. But there's only been one team on the field on both occasions with the Saints. And, it's going to be hard enough to make a case for the Bucs. But how much do we realistically want to read into those two meetings?
I mean, it's very difficult, right? Because things have changed since those earlier meetings. And I think the biggest factor would be the Bucs offense now having Antonio Brown. And that second meeting where they got blown out, which was probably the worst game of Tom Brady's career as a whole, was actually Antonio Brown's first game, but he saw very limited snaps on offense. Like, they were still working him in there. And the Bucs offense has really changed over the course of the latter half of the year with Antonio Brown being there and offering like a shorter outlet rather than all these deep routes that they continuously would run with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So when you look at the Saints, they do fit that profile of a team that can disrupt Brady. But so did Washington last week, right? I mean, Washington has that really good defensive line, and Brady was getting the ball out a little bit quicker, but the offensive line was holding up. So that, kind of gives me a little bit of pause. Or is New Orleans just going to be getting in the backfield on every play like they were early on in the year? Or is there a chance for Tampa Bay's offensive line to hold up? And the reality is, I don't know, but I obviously think this game is going to be closer. I don't think it's going to be a complete blowout. And in terms of just looking at like Sunday night last week, I hear Tony Dungy on like it's so difficult to beat a team 3 times in a year, right? And that's kind of like the narrative, but that really hasn't been the case. It's only happened limited times, but if you go back 2 decades, it's happened 7 times, and the team that won the first 2 matchups end up winning 4 out of the 7 games. Probably meaningless, but like that's just like a really weird narrative that's kind of been brought up that I don't buy into in general. I just like, I think this is the right number in the game. I think the Saints are a better team. I understand that anyone who would have wanted to grab that hook when Tampa Bay 3.5 was available very early, or if that does become available again at some point, I think that's the most appealing side to take in this game. But I'm looking at my numbers right now. I make New Orleans -3. I make the total 51.5. So it's really hard for me to advocate for anything in this game.
Drew, what are you thinking with this one? Again, I think it's 66% of the time that if you've won 2 games in the regular season, you play this team again in the playoffs, you win. So that's not a trend. That's not one to be worried about. But I mean, look, the Bucs against the Saints defense, and again, Antonio Brown comes in there, but there's a lot to be worried about with this Bucs offense right now, you would think, going into New Orleans and something.
Yeah, it's tough to beat a team 3 times is absolutely insane. The reality is if you're playing a divisional opponent in the playoffs, there's a lot of familiarity there. It's tough to win a playoff game against a team that has a lot of familiarity. I mean, I think that is really more of the truth to that particular point of view. Whether or not team winning the 3rd time, I think is not signal at all. I think just throw that out entirely. I also think you can entirely throw out the first matchup between these teams. I don't think it indicated much in terms of the strength of the Saints. If the Saints don't win the turnover battle there 3-0, they lose that game. They lose it. Their offense was awful. And in reality, like over the first couple of games, first portion of the season, the Saints really weren't the same team that we're seeing now. Their defense was performing a heck of a lot more poorly in the red zone, in the passing game. They were getting penalties at a clip that was, on pace for historic levels. And they've cleaned up a lot of that. And over the last half of the season, especially, or really the last 2/3 of the season, they're performing as clearly as a top 3 defense in the NFL. And this is going to be a true test for a Tampa Bay team that, while they have the most spectacular offensive weapons, and it's not close. I mean, and specifically in the passing game, like forget about the running game, like their receiving options it's an embarrassment of riches. Tom Brady has, specifically set himself up well in that regard, and hat tip to him. But I don't know that this is going to look as clean, as easy as it did against the Washington football team. I was disappointed in Washington football team D-line last week. I don't know how many times it's been said, how many people in the world of football have kind of know this well, but you don't get pressure on Brady. You don't disrupt him with these long developing stunts, rushing around the outside. He gets the ball out of his hand so fast. Yeah. Like if you're expecting that's going to be the difference, you're in deep trouble. And that is like right out of the gate. It was like, the Tampa Bay is winning their matchups in the inside here. This is over. Like and in reality, like an 8-point win for Tampa Bay wasn't really reflective of how much better they were at all, especially in that game. Hat tip to Taylor Heineke for for playing his butt off. But in reality, Tampa, especially on defense, I felt like was holding a lot of their cards. Really didn't want to do it, and didn't want to really put their best stuff on film, maybe. And the offense, the clips I've seen since that game, even some of the background, Leftwich talking to Brady and stuff. He's not getting a ton of support from this coaching staff. And really, if I'm going to take a side in this game, it's going to be because of the coaching mismatch. And I think the Saints coaching is substantially better than what the Bucs have. And in the same sense that I think you saw vanilla defense from the Bucs in that Washington game, I think you saw vanilla offense from the Saints in the Bears game. I mean, the Bears defense is good. They have some key playmakers, but overall, conceptually, especially in that first half, the Saints were really not using the best of their options. Sean Payton, kind of taking his foot off the gas a couple of times when the Saints were driving in that first half, settling for field goal attempts or punts. It was very un-Payton-y. And I would expect you to see a much more aggressive Payton in this game on offense, but he's going to be matched with a more sophisticated defensive approach, surely, by Todd Bowles, and a decent defense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the line ultimately is fair. If I had to take a side, I'm taking the Saints, and it's just basically like, is Sean Payton going to have the right adjustment at halftime? Is he going to have the right wrinkle introduced that the Bucs haven't seen? And is he going to have, basically get his guys playing up for this game in the same way they did in the second matchup? I think those are all very real possibilities. I don't love the potential for them getting inside pressure the way that the Bucs offensive line is playing, and in the absence of Trey Hendrickson potentially. But there's not a clear, obvious bettable angle here. If and if you said, okay, well, what's the greatest edge your numbers make against any of the side or the total? I would say it's under 52. Mostly because this is a divisional matchup. There's a ton of familiarity, and I think the Bucs defense is capable of making this more of a rock fight than a shootout. But this is the toughest handicap on the board, and I don't think it's close.
Coaching mismatch there is, well, maybe not go as far as mismatch, but definitely an advantage for the Saints. And some you've touched on it a good few times with Leftwich and Arians here, not really kind of helping out Brady, calling those early runs and first down, putting them slightly behind the sticks. Is that enough to get you to the window here back in the Saints, Suma, with Payton against Arians?
No, and as much as we have criticized the Bucs over the course of the season, I think you can see that something happened during their bye week in week 13. Since coming out of the bye week, they have increased their play action percentage. They have increased their passing percentage on early downs. They have increased their pre-snap motion. And some guys like Robert Mason, Nate Tice also mentioned that the Bucs are suddenly running plays from the Patriots playbook, where Tom Brady was very successful throwing the ball to Julian Edelman out of those stacked formations. And I think when watching the Bucs also against Washington, this is really looking like a different offense from the early part of the season. They have their full arsenal of weapons. The report that Brady has built with his receivers seems finally clicking. Of course, they have played a very easy schedule over the past 5 to 6 weeks, but they crushed those teams. And I think if Tom Brady is on, if he's on fire, and if they continue to play like this, I don't think that the Saints defense will make a huge difference in this game. On the side, I think 3 is entirely fair. I made this game 3 as well, but I'm actually keeping an eye on the over. I wish that there could be some more under money coming later in the week. I would love to get 51 here, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense has been a below average unit over a very decent sample size right now. Drew Brees just got Michael Thomas back. Before the last playoff game, Drew Brees and Michael Thomas didn't even play 100 snaps together this season. So Deontay Harris, maybe they are starting to move that guy more. I think I really liked how they used him against the Bears. Alvin Kamara, Manny Zanas, I think they have enough weapons to be very successful throwing the ball on the Bucs. And that's why I really like this over here. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a high-scoring game with 2 great offenses and 2 defenses that I don't really see getting lots of stops in this game.
Drew, jump back in.
I guess if you made an early bet and you got 3.5 on the Bucs, you made a good bet. I don't think this is going back to 3.5. I don't think it's going down to 2.5. I think this is staying at 3, and you see some push pull on big at some point, for the rest of the week. I have outstanding liability on the Saints to win the NFC. If I didn't, I'd probably bet Saints. I know Suma he's into the Bucs, I think, for futures in his futures book. I'm curious, Suma, if you didn't have a Bucs position, would you be taking one in this game?
I don't think it would matter. If you gave me Bucs +4 now, I would probably take the Bucs in this one. But at 3, I would prefer the over if it ticks down a little bit.
Can I also ask, guys, look, Drew, you said it there, if the line says a 3, it says a 3, and there's a bit of push and pull on either side. You can back currently at Matchbook the Bucs +3.5 at 1.83. If you want to be a Bucs backer here, if it gets to -110 or 1.91 at +3.5, are you better off taking that there, guys? Or are you better off taking the 2.52? Or invariably, it'll be about 2.6 on the money line for the Bucs. Rob, any thoughts on that one?
I think that this is a really challenging one. It's just because I'm so close to market just in general right now that I can envision a scenario. I mean, it's not going to happen. I totally agree with Drew that we're probably staying on 3 here. But if we move to 2.5, I have no problem taking the Saints. If we move to 3.5, I have no problem taking the Bucs because I believe in the value of 3.
Yeah.
And that's sort of just where I stand on this game in general. I do kind of agree with what Suma was saying in that the Bucs have transformed into this over team since their bye week, both offensively and defensively. But on the other side of things, I think the Saints have kind of transformed into an under team because the defense has gotten progressively better as the year has gone on as well. So, this one's just so challenging for me in general where I don't know what's going to happen in this game. I agree with what Drew said. I think this is by far the hardest handicap on the board.
And in that spirit, and with a total of 52, I'm going to go counter to what you were kind of postulating there, Sully. I think if you like Saints, you might as well lay 3.5. If you like Bucs, you might as well take money line.
Yeah.
It's kind of the selling points type of strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good points. Like we said, probably the toughest handicap to break down of the weekend. So let's move on to the earlier game on Sunday night. And Drew, I'll start with you here first. But let's take a look at the betting, first of all, in the Browns at the Chiefs. What a win for the Browns. 25 years of waiting. The playoffs, 5.3. You can back them on the money line. That's over 4-1, just under 92 in fractional terms. The Kansas City Chiefs are just under 1.23. 9.5 is the total. That opened about 10, so there has been a bit of Browns money. 57 is the total. I think there was somebody opened that total at 52, and it pretty much got bet up for. It's just a wrong number. That happens. We're not all, we're absolutely. Some people make mistakes, but true. Look, we've been talking about it. I'm not saying you're making this mistake, but I know that you like.
No, 52 was a mistake. I agree.
Yeah, that was just a mistake. I'm glad I didn't open that one. But Browns +10 was your look initially, and look, the Chiefs haven't covered the spread, and I think it's about 9 games. It's a big number here.
Yeah.
Go on, break it down for us. What do you think? Are you still liking the Browns?
What's Browns money line at Matchbook right now? Just out of curiosity.
5.3.
5.3.
Yeah, 733 quid there if anyone wants to take that.
You're telling me that they have that? Man, I'm shocked. I am shocked that there is this little support for the Cleveland Browns. These numbers are not right. I can't believe that there are not math people out there, coming in and providing some market correction on what I think is a pretty obvious.
There probably is, but they
obvious on if you wanted to back the Chiefs this week. I'm shocked. Even maybe the Matchbook, maybe a market like that finally levels out as we get closer to kickoff here, but. As you noted, I'm mostly into Browns +10. I also took some Browns money line parlayed with the over. I think there is a real game state here where this turns into a shootout. Team with the ball last wins, and the Browns have every real possibility to be that team. If we want to kind of get into why I'm bullish on the Browns, why I think this number is wrong. It is predominantly, I'm challenging some of the narrative around the Chiefs can just flip a switch and use the good plays and, just throttle a team that has an offense that is good as the Browns. And I guess all the second half of the season, I made plenty of my margin on the season was made by fading the Chiefs, largely because just the number was always, I felt like always had a surcharge on it. And the Chiefs, other than that, other than backing them against the Saints and then when they clearly should have covered and let that game, eke by 3, I think the Chiefs were underwhelming. And a lot of it boils down to Pat Mahomes' play specifically. Some of his play, in my opinion, is influenced because the offensive line is performing at a level that is way, way below what we saw from them last year. And even at the beginning of this season, he's been under pressure more often. He's taking more sacks. He's converting third downs at a lower clip. Some of this is because the running game has completely stalled out. They're asking Pat Mahomes to convert third and long at a really, really high rate. And granted, he's the best football player we've seen in a long time, and he can do it at a decent clip, but they're just asking him to do it too often. And to a degree, I think defensive coordinators around the league have kind of come around to, oh, wait, we can't blitz him and expect to win. We can't let him break the pocket and expect to win our 1v1s downfield against these athletes. Like, it's just not sustainable. So we'll play more safeties in coverage. We'll try to get pressure with our front four, and we'll dare Pat Mahomes to make the right decision, not take the key sack, and in sort of a basic defensive strategy. And it's worked. Teams like the Atlanta Falcons put together a blueprint, amazingly, went into Kansas City as 10-point underdogs and put together the exact blueprint to hold Mahomes to 17 points in that game. Realistically, should have been 14 if they actually come away, or 10 if they come away with that interception towards the in that fourth quarter there, and they should have probably gotten the win. And I see enough similarities between the likes of the Browns defense and the Falcons defense and the Raiders defense. You can do just enough to keep this game from getting away from you, which then puts a ton of pressure on the Chiefs defense, which I think stinks. This defense is going to have a very tough time getting off the field against a Browns unit that is absolutely clicking on all cylinders. We have seen Baker Mayfield perform at the level of a number 1 overall pick over the last half of this season. His Kevin Stefanski now back on the sidelines, and the wrinkles that he integrates in his game plan, I think, are going to make it very tough for this Chiefs defense to find stops. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, this is the type of time of the season where you want those guys and the fresh legs that they offer to put some pain and hurt on a Chiefs defense that struggles against the run. And I see lots of matchups that are positive for this Browns offense to score points in this game and give the Chiefs a real test. Now, are they ultimately going to get the upset? I don't say that it's more than about a 30-ish% chance, but it's certainly more than 5.3. Like, that line is insane to me.
Hey,
and
Drew,
I think
just cut you off for a second, right? So we were talking about that 5.3 at £700. But you know what, Drew? I don't know. Somebody must be listening to you because it's gone. It's gone. And we're now down to 5.0. Look, it's still a big price. It's plus 400 or 5.0. We're back up to 5.1.
Okay,
there you go. So somebody is listening to you somewhere, Drew. So yeah, it's good to know. But it is a huge price. Joe, I'll come back to you in a second about that. But Suma, what are you thinking with this one? I mean, look, let's face it. We're going to get this narrative as well. Andy Reid off a bye, 20-3. Patrick Mahomes off a bye. That's all great, but they haven't played in 3 weeks. There's going to be some bit of rust there, surely. The first half line might be a bit of a look, but what are you thinking with this one? Can the Chiefs just turn it on and use these good plays and destroy the Browns?
Let's remember last year they had lots of rust against the Texans, were down by 24 points and still would have covered a -10 spread. So
that was Bill O'Brien, though. There's Kevin
exactly. I don't really disagree with Drew at all here. I think that the Chiefs defense is not built to defend the Browns very well. They are absolutely going to lose the line of scrimmage. And what Steve Spagnuolo is doing schematically with lots of the shift coverages. That's not really the style that the Browns offense plays. They are great at running the ball. They are great at calling lots of play action with pretty defined reads. And that's not really a style of offense, in my opinion, that plays into the favor of the Kansas City defense. They would rather get a drop back passing game where the quarterback is sitting in the pockets and they can force him to hold the ball. I think that the Browns offense should have decent success against that defense. As I said, I think they are going to control the line of scrimmage. The Chiefs defense, I think they rank second to last or third to last in EPA per rush. So the Browns should get something going on the ground and use lots of play action off of it. But on the other side, I don't really see how the Browns defense is going to slow down Patrick Mahomes either. Mitchell Schwartz might not play, but despite playing extremely underwhelming throughout the season, the Chiefs still have the third best offense according to every serious efficiency metric that we use. And that's with some really weird stuff in the red zone where they throw the ball to Patrick Mahomes being the receiver against the Falcons and stuff like that. So I think it's fair to say that the Chiefs have underperformed, and we can't be sure that they are finally playing like that Super Bowl contender. But on the other side, I also don't have a lot of reason to say otherwise. That Browns defense, if we strip out the 3 win games in the middle of the season, it's a unit that ranks in the mid-20s against everything. I also don't think that Denzel Ward is going to make a huge difference against the Chiefs passing attack. So I think there's a clear path where both teams are able to move the ball pretty consistently. And all I'm looking at right now is the over. I'm a little bit mad that it ticked up a little bit to 56.5. I'm hoping and rooting for some under money later in the week. But I'm pretty much talking myself into the over all week because the Browns, if we strip out all those meaningless games like the win games or the games where they didn't have any wide receivers against the Jets, their games are averaging 63 points per game in total. And they are now playing against a Chiefs offense coming out of the bye week. I can only see points in this game, and I would certainly look at the over here. On the spread, I made this number 9.5 initially, so I would agree that there's some value on the Browns, but it's not enough for me to fade the Chiefs in this spot. But I also don't really disagree with Drew.
Rob, what are you thinking with this one? It's a fascinating matchup. There's a fascinating market currently.
So I agree with what a lot of Drew said off the top here. I think when you're modeling football games, if you're using priors, so you're using what you thought the Chiefs were going into the season, you can get to this number. I think if you're using just this season's data alone, it's a challenge. And honestly, I'm not a big fan. Like the Chiefs now are not what they were last year. Could they potentially be? Maybe if they get Mitchell Schwartz back, yes. I mean, if you look at the Chiefs offense with Mitchell Schwartz on the field this season, their EPA per play was 204. When you look at them since he's been gone, it's 164, which doesn't sound like a big difference, but it goes from being an elite offense to a very good one. It's not Packers level right now, right? And personally, it's just very difficult to not look at the fact that this team has been playing close games for a long time. And the market expectation is that they are going to keep blowing out these teams that they're playing. And they've, since playing the Jets in November, I have their schedule up here. They've won by 2, 4, 3, 6, 6, 3, and 3. And some of those games are more lopsided than the final score, and they let other teams back into it. And I think you have to account for that as well. But if we go back to November 8th, they hosted the Carolina Panthers. They were a 10-point favorite in that game. And now they're a 9.5-point favorite, some spots 10, against the Cleveland Browns, which to me are a much better team than the Carolina Panthers. Now they're coming off a bye. I think that has to be accounted for. I think it is a monumental advantage to have a bye in the NFL playoffs. Kansas City and Green Bay for me have the biggest home field advantage anyone's going to have at any point in the season this week. But for all the reasons that Suma and Drew mentioned, I don't think this is necessarily a good matchup for Kansas City either, in that we know that the Browns can run the ball really well. They get Joel Bitonio back on the offensive line this week. Kansas City's 31st in rush EPA per play on defense, 27th rush DVOA, or maybe I got those mixed up. But either way, it's a really bad run defense. So I think Cleveland can move it through the air and on the ground. And just by virtue of that, there's no way I could ever lay this price with Kansas City. So I think it's Cleveland or nothing. My challenge with Suma's over is this. I think Cleveland has a very good coaching staff. And I think if you're going to go up against the Kansas City offense, what you are going to try to do is limit the big plays. Plain and simple. Because if you look at Kansas City's red zone offense this year, their red zone touchdown percentage is 61%. That's pretty much league average. That's not just this year. If you go back to last year, they were 60% scoring touchdowns in the red zone. So to me, this is very much a game where I think Kansas City marches up the field incrementally, and they don't face much resistance in doing that because the Browns are preventing big plays.
Yeah.
But maybe the Browns get some stops in the red zone, or Kansas City has to go for some fourth downs or something along that. And a total of 56.5, 57, that's like one of those where you either need big plays or you need a touchdown on every drive. And I'm not convinced we're going to necessarily get those in this game. So my look would be to the Browns in general. I think this is too many points. And the matchup is good for them. Like, I mean, it's weird to say that against the Kansas City Chiefs in general, but they match up favorably against this team, in my opinion. So Browns plus 9.5 for me as well, I think would be a look.
Drew, wrap it up there for us, man.
Yeah. And you can summarize they match up favorably in one sentence. Can the Browns score 30 points? Yes. Then they match up favorably. Like, that's really all that it comes down to. And specifically to piggyback on Rob's points there, the Chiefs are the New York Yankees. They hit home runs and they strike out. And if you can force them into a game plan where they make them hit singles, make them be efficient, they're not efficient. They are wildly inefficient. It is really mind-blowing when you kind of dig into the numbers, like how hard it is sometimes for them to move the ball, considering how explosive they are. And I think it just if the Browns are themselves, if they just roll out and do on defense what they've been doing all season, which is not spectacular, but it is a low blitz percentage. It is a lot of keeping the safeties back, not getting burned deep. Like, they've been beaten up on the scoreboard by teams that are efficient, not by explosive plays over the course of the season. And I think, there's just so many similarities between, Falcons blitzed 25% of the time in that game where they held the Chiefs down to 17 points. There's enough, if they're just themselves and they force the Chiefs to do it the hard way, I think that they're in great shape. And then specifically from a betting standpoint, let's say the Chiefs come out and they're sharp as tacks. They learned their lesson last season. They're not coming out of there by slow. They're going to be real, into this game. Perfect game plan. They come out and they score a touchdown right away. Is the live line going to move that much? Probably not. I mean, maybe it goes out to 10.5 or 11. It's not going to move to 2 touchdowns right off the bat, right? Much more likely outcome, in my opinion, is that it's a little bit of a slog out of the gate. Maybe the Browns' scripted offense looks outstanding. We know that they throw to get the lead, and Kevin Stefanski's misdirection is perfect matchup against this Chiefs defense. If the Browns get a lead, you're going to get an opportunity at some point to come in live on the Chiefs at a much more favorable price than 10.5, 9.5, whatever the closing number is going to be here. So anyone that is just listening to this and is like, these guys are idiots, the Chiefs are going to dominate, like, just be patient. Like, you'll get a better price in play. I'm saying there's like 60, 70-ish% chance that there is a better price in play than the closing number on this one.
I mean,
sorry, Rob. Go on.
At the end of the day, you're betting against Pat Mahomes, and I'm never going to have like this huge degree of confidence in betting against Patrick Mahomes. But at least, like, it's the spread is 9.5. It's not like this is a spread of 3 or something like that where you're barely taking back anything. There are a lot of situations where the Browns offense is good enough to get in the back door. Like there's a lot of scenarios that lead to winning 9.5 here versus a lower spread. So I'm not one that loves to bet against the Chiefs in general. I've pointed this out on this pod many times this year, but I mean, this year alone, I'm not getting to 9.5 as the number.
Well, Rob, you say there about Patrick Mahomes, but if you bet against him 7 of the last 8 weeks, you're making money as well on the spread. So, but can I just ask? We'll come off this Chiefs game, but I just think it's fascinating. How's the market still not getting them right though? Because like you guys said, if you're looking at them start of the season, then you're probably betting them this way. But there's a big sample size of games here. The market probably still hasn't adjusted. Is it basically that odds makers at the very beginning of the week are just scared shitless? They don't want to take on the Chiefs because they know if they hang a dodgy number like a 6.5 or 7, rather than getting to an 8 and 9, that like their book is going to be lopsided. Is it merely that, or is it just something that they just haven't caught up enough on?
Priors is one, 100% for sure. There's enough sharp people in this market that still think the Chiefs are. I mean, they're better than I think the Chiefs are, or Drew thinks. Maybe Suma's the highest on the Chiefs out of this entire group in general. But I think there are sharp people in market that genuinely believe that this is maybe the same Chiefs team as last year, and they've kind of just went through the motions in some capacity this year, and they're able to flip a switch. It's entirely possible. I think that's one thing. And then just in general with your recreational bettor, Kansas City's still winning games. They're still a very good team in the public eye, where people want to be on the side of this team in general. So I think it's a number of different factors that contribute to it. But I mean, I'm just not. I think the Chiefs are the Super Bowl favorite. I think they're the best team in the NFL. I don't think that they're this much better than the Cleveland Browns. Yeah,
that's fundamentally what it comes down to. The Browns plus 9.5 currently available Matchbook at even money at 2.0. So we're even getting plus money. I just want to take in one comment here from Patrick B. Joined late, but did you guys touch on the Andy Reid off the double play narrative? That's a fresh one, fresh take. I love it.
That spins into your last question to Rob though. Like I don't think that there is going to be any shortage of recreational money come Sunday. On the Chiefs Sunday morning. I mean, I don't think, and if I'm a bookmaker, and granted, I don't have experience making numbers, working behind the counter at all. That's probably one of the weaknesses in my handicapping overall. But as just speculating, I would not want to have a decision early in the week. I would not want to have a decision where I need the Browns.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Yeah. And it's a hard one to get out of because you're going to have to stick up some pretty big numbers to get money on the other side. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's take the Browns plus 9.5 there. Just want to slow it down for just 2 seconds, gentlemen, and tell you guys about our new welcome offer for new customers. Now, this week we will have player props available this week as well. So there's a couple of ones there that I might chat about later and a couple of other games that are available. But if you haven't got a Matchbook account and you're looking around for the best price in your money line, your point spreads, and you're checking out Odds Check or other price comparison sites, believe me, guys, and yes, I'm biased because I'm an employee, but Matchbook invariably is going to be best price in all of these. And you can eat value, so sign up today at matchbook.com. If you bet 10 your first bet, you get 10 for your next bet thereafter. Minimum odds of 2.0, which is also even money, 18 plus only, and please do gamble responsibly at all times. Right, guys, let's move on. Ravens, Bills, Saturday night. This, for me, is the game of the weekend in my book. Suma, I'll come to you first, mate. We'll just have a look at the betting. You can back the Ravens here. Very tight one, probably the tightest on the slate this week. 2.27, the Ravens. The Bills are just under 1.77. The Ravens are getting a 2.5 point start, but you can back it. Odds against their 2.03 plus money. 50.0, flat 50 is the total. Suma, you're at it early this week on insights.matchbook.com, where you have a terrific record, 73% on the season, nothing to be sniffed at. And you have taken the Buffalo Bills. Drew's going to love you for this, but explain why Buffalo wins this weekend and explain why they cover this weekend.
So first of all, I got -2 yesterday, -2.5 on the insights column. And I want to talk about last weekend's matchups first, because I think that there was some recency bias shaping the early market in this game, in my honest opinion. The Ravens, in the end, won pretty not really convincingly, but you didn't really have the feeling that the Titans could easily tie the game and go to overtime. And in the end, I think that the difference in this game was pretty much the Titans coaching staff. The Titans offense was averaging 0.4 EPA per pass more on early downs than they did with runs. 0.4 EPA per play, and they had a 50-51 pass split. And that's including the fourth quarter interception on second down. So they were at 0.3 EPA per play throwing the ball versus minus 0.2 running the ball. So that was pretty ridiculous to watch. I think that if the Titans just go a little bit more pass heavy on early downs, they have a real shot at tying this game and maybe go to overtime. And on the other hand, the Bills had a very close game against the Colts, and maybe they deserved to lose in the end. I think that the Colts had a very good day passing the ball, but the Bills, they went 2 for 9 on third downs. They failed on 3 third downs with 3 or fewer yards to go, and they still very casually dropped 27 points on the Colts. So that was, in hindsight, pretty ridiculous to see in the numbers. They averaged minus 0.57 EPA per play on third down, and during the regular season, they were the third best team in the league. So it was really just bad variance for them on late downs, and I think if they get some of those late downs right, that game is probably not close in the end. And now this week, the Ravens are going to make a complete 180 turn when it comes to opposing coaching, in my opinion. The Bills have the second best passing game right after the Packers. Josh Allen has been playing on an MVP level. And if we look at it, if not for the Hail Mary from Kyler Murray at Arizona, the Bills would be riding an 11-game win streak right now. And that number would probably look a little bit different. So they really just lost that one game, close game at Arizona over their last 11. And this is such a great and elite passing attack. They have a solid offensive line. They have 3 very good receivers. They have an offensive coordinator that absolutely knows what he's doing. They have called the highest pass rate on early downs in the regular season. And I think the big advantage for the Ravens last week was that the Titans offense, with their play calling, played up to their strength, played up to the Baltimore defense's strength, basically stopping the run on early downs and then forcing Ryan Tannehill into some obvious passing downs where he has to throw the ball and can't use play action anymore. And with the Bills, it's very tough for any defense to stop a great passing attack. So offensive performance is generally much more predictive than defensive performance. And if we look at the Bills' offense, there's not a lot that any defense in the league can throw at them to make lots of key stops. They've really gashed any defense over the past half season. So I don't really see how the Ravens, if the Bills don't try to establish the run into a brick wall on early downs, I don't really see how the Ravens defense is generating lots of stops in this game. And then on the other side, it's going to be interesting how the Buffalo Bills defense attacks Lamar Jackson. I think the Titans did a pretty good job. They used their slot cornerback Desmond King on a spy, and if Lamar Jackson held the ball, he just crushed the pocket on a blitz. They flooded the middle of the field where Lamar Jackson loves to throw to, and the Bills have a much better front seven and a much better secondary than the Titans, and they have a very smart coaching staff. So I think that Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens one game, they will still find some chunk plays on the ground. But I think that the Bills defense can really make it tough on them and contain the passing gains somewhat. And they will also, in my opinion, find some solution to not give up 6 yards per carry on the ground. And so overall, we're probably getting into a game script where the Bills offense is able to score. And then Lamar Jackson has to hold the ball. And that's not really the style of offense that the Ravens want to play and where they are usually successful in. So I think the Bills are overall the better team. They have the much better passing attack. I think that their passing attack will dictate this game, and I'm happy with laying less than a field goal at home. And some additional point, the Bills are at home for 3 weeks now. The Ravens have their third consecutive road game. That might be a disadvantage as well. So overall, I don't really get why this number is below a field goal, in my opinion.
Sully's
You muted yourself, Sully.
Oh. It's like, we record on Monday in the football. I've never done back-to-back mutes. Like, oh, jeez, I just used to keep that for Jesse May. But Rob Pizzola, I mentioned last week I had some Bills future tickets. I must admit, when I saw the Steelers losing on Sunday night, I was a bit worried. I would have preferred those guys. But, Suma makes some pretty valid points there. And you've done a bit of a flip with the Bills early on the season as well. And are you still a believer?
I am a believer, and I think this is a great matchup for Buffalo this week. So Buffalo will be my largest play of the weekend in general, for a lot of the reasons that Suma just mentioned. But ultimately, I've seen some things already, and I mean, Twitter's not a great barometer of what people are always saying in general, but a lot of people are pointing to the Ravens win in Buffalo last year, right? The Ravens beat Buffalo 24-17 last year on the road. And if you're using that as a guide for what you think is going to happen this year, I don't think that's a good idea, because if you go back and watch that game, I mean, Josh Allen was horrendous, as he was for most of the entire year. He overthrew a lot of receivers, or his mechanics were way off. He was a deer in the headlight in the pocket quite a bit. And he didn't have Stephon Diggs either. It's a completely different offense this year. The Ravens have some great cornerbacks for sure, but the Bills have so many weapons on offense. They have run all these 4 receiver sets quite regularly. And yes, the Ravens can match up on some of those receivers man to man, but Diggs, Beasley, Brown, Davis as 4 wide, like that is an incredibly good offense to have, just in general, with a quarterback that's been able to deliver pretty accurately this year. So I don't necessarily see the Ravens putting up much resistance. It's like very similar to what we might have seen from the Colts last week. You can kind of slow down the Bills offense here and there, but you're not going to shut them down. Like, one team shut them down this year was the New York Jets somehow, who didn't allow a touchdown. I don't know how that happened, but for me, it's the other side of the ball that I'm kind of sounding like a broken record here when I talk about Buffalo, but there's like this narrative that the Bills defense, or especially their run defense, is bad. And it's not. I mean, if you look at the season numbers as a whole, you'll see EPA per play, rush defense 23rd, DVOA rush defense 17th. If we cut the season in half and we look at week 10 onwards, those numbers are both 12th. If we look at when Matt Milano is on the field for them this year, because he's been injured for a large portion, they're 7th in rush defense. And that comes with them encouraging opposing teams to run on them as well, keeping their safeties pretty high. They don't want teams passing on early downs. And I actually think the Ravens are going to fall right into this trap, where they're going to be a run-heavy team. I mean, it's like, that's what the Ravens do. And we saw it against Tennessee last week. The Titans have a horrible pass defense. Horrible. Like, if you are game planning to go up against the Tennessee Titans, throw the ball on them as much as humanly possible, and you are going to win. But the Ravens are not built that way. They're going to need the run. They're going to emphasize the run on early downs. And I don't think that's going to work out for them. I think we're going to see a lot of 3rd and longs, a lot of 3rd and mediums for Lamar Jackson. And the one thing I will say about last week, Phillip Rivers on those 3rd downs, he was fantastic converting them, but he was also audibling like crazy at the line of scrimmage. If you watch that, they got to the line. He knew what defenses the Bills were going to run. And that's just the strength of Phillip Rivers in general over the course of his career. He's a very smart quarterback. He knows when he has to get the ball out quickly. Lamar Jackson is not that quarterback. He's going to beat you with his legs. And I do think he probably has a couple chunk plays in this game overall. But to ask him to read a defense and scan a defense and figure out what's coming, especially with the weapons that he has offensively, which are arguably the worst receiving core in the league as a whole, I don't think the Ravens are going to find this to be a successful matchup for them. I think the Bills are going to win. My number in the game is just above 3, but subjectively speaking, I love the matchup for Buffalo in general, to the point where I know a ton of people are going to play Ravens and teasers this week because it's the obvious teaser play, and I would be extremely concerned about that as well. So, that's just me, a big summary of I like the Bills quite a bit.
Dinsick, it's a tough one, mate. Chiefs, Ravens stakeholders that you are, to hear Rob Pizzola and Fabian Sommer go against them, mate. It's scary times.
Not great.
Make the case for the defense, though.
I like the Ravens, and here's why. Last year, they went into Baltimore, or they played Buffalo. They played Buffalo, and they won 24-17. And honestly, Josh Allen couldn't complete a pass to save his damn life. So 24-17 Ravens, I think, is pretty clear. In seriousness, I agreed with almost all of what you guys are saying, but I take a different lesson away from it to a degree. I guess we go back to last week. Absolutely, Sean McDermott is getting underappreciated for how well he managed that game. He absolutely outcoached Frank Reich, which is not easy to do. Frank Reich usually wins the coach v. coach matchup in game, and Sean McDermott schooled him. It was embarrassing, actually. It was surprising and embarrassing. And that's the reason they won, because the Colts outplayed them overall. And I would say, to the degree that Suma brought up, well, the Bills pretty effortlessly scored 27 points. Let's not forget, a lot of that came, 7 of those points came at the end of the first half, where the Colts legitimately gifted them the first down that begot their second touchdown that blew up my Colts plus 3.5 first half play, which I was very confident was going to land. And then in the second half of that game, it took about, I would say, 20 dropbacks before Josh Allen really looked comfortable against the cover 2 defense. And that's pretty typical of him over the course of his career. He has always looked better against man than against cover 2. His receivers can generate separation against man. They're good. And I think that, Wink Martindale, given that he is a relatively, sharp defensive coordinator, will have the right defense crafted here to make Josh Allen look uncomfortable at times during this game. Cole Beasley also, I thought, looked limited injury-wise. I don't think did he run more than 1 or 2 routes in that entire game? Like, if that's the plan and he just runs that same route, snap after snap after snap after snap, are the Ravens going to be prepared for it? Absolutely. So then really it comes down to, can you put Marlon Humphrey on Diggs and expect a solid, a win on more than 50% of snaps? I think so. And then similarly, can you get some pressure on or contain Josh Allen and what he wants to do on the ground with his legs with your defense? I think so. But realistically, I don't think I'm looking for the Ravens to hold the Bills under 27 to be in this game or to potentially win. And it comes down to the fact that the Ravens last week were strength on strength, weakness on weakness going up against the Titans defense. Legitimately, the way you beat the Titans was asking the Ravens to do what they are the least comfortable doing. And it showed. It was very hard for them to move that ball early in that game. It took a couple of absolutely heroic plays on the ground from Lamar Jackson to kind of swing the momentum in that one. And agree 100% with Suma's take that if Vrabel doesn't make some really poor in-game decisions, if Art Smith doesn't come into that contest saying we are going to establish the run at all costs, and in the fourth quarter, Derrick Henry's going to bust them. If they come in with a more progressive game plan and a more aggressive in-game strategy, they probably win. And this week, I see strength on weakness when I look at the Baltimore Ravens, what they like to do. What is at their core? What are they most trying to do? I look at as being able to run roughshod on the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills have only played a mobile quarterback a handful of times this season. And the results were not great. Kyler Murray absolutely devastated them on the ground. And this is, again, when Kyler Murray wasn't really anywhere close to the emphasis of quarterback design runs in their playbook as what the Ravens are going to do. I think the Buffalo Bills defense tackling is questionable. If you can give me, Dobbins and Lamar Jackson in the secondary trying to elude tackles from this Bills team, I will take that all day. Absolutely. And in terms of the passing game, where the Bills struggle the most, it's over the middle of the field and against the tight end, which is specifically the one thing in the passing playbook that the Ravens like to go to. So I really do think that the Ravens offense is going to be in for a relatively comfortable contest here, just because of the way they match up against this Bills defense. And the last kind of point I want to put on this, I've heard a lot of people say this, and I 100% agree with it. Sean McDermott invites the opposing team to run the ball on them. And he does that wisely because almost every team in the league has a negative or a tiny EPA per play on a rush. And it's usually less than an EPA per play on a throw. Even last week against the Colts, like they generated negative EPA per play on the rushes. And if you're going to invite your opponent to do something that's bad for them, great. That is not the case with the Ravens. You invite them to run the ball the way they want to run the ball, and and the way that they're peaking right now, especially in the run game. You are in for a long day. You're going to have to play catch up at some point in this one. You're going to have to ask Josh Allen to be his best self and perform a perfect game, not make mistakes, not look nervous, not have sort of the typical one or two plays during the game where it's like, oh yeah, that's Josh Allen, right? So I think the pressure here really will be on the Bills to go score for score and answer, because I see the Ravens getting theirs in this one. If I'm not going to play the Ravens because I think the number's a little short, but if we were, I wouldn't look away from an over here. I think the Ravens could get into the 30s, and then it's just you're asking the Bills to get to, say, 23.
And what about that? Are we any kind of indications weather-wise in Buffalo? So you were saying they're like 10 to 15 miles an hour, the winds?
Yeah. Winds coming down in the forecast.
Yeah. Winds coming down, and the percentage of snow or precipitation's coming down as well, which I think would also, that's something to keep an eye on for anyone who's watching this on the weekend. But I think if it does snow, couple things. We saw Lamar Jackson say this week that he's never played in the snow, period. Doesn't know how to grip a football when it's in the snow. I don't know if that's like just games, but it seemed like a very honest comment, for one. And then the second thing is, as one of my best friends, a big Ravens fan, is praying for no snow, because the Ravens pull their guards so much in the running game that just in general, not having that footing could potentially be a larger issue for them. Not saying it's going to happen. It's a low likelihood. I think it's about 25% chance of snow during the game right now. But, I live in Toronto. I'm not far from Buffalo. The wind changes on a dime. So
you can just let us know in the WhatsApp group if you don't mind, Drew. That would be fantastic. Good guy to follow on Twitter actually is Kevin Roth. He does the Roto Grinders weather as well, so he's a good guy for NFL and DFS weather. Drew, passionate, spirited response to the guys, but since I future positions and the two guys are so adamant, we're just going to put the Bills minus 2.5. But look, you may have the last laugh here, and you may have the last laugh long term on these Ravens, because I just want
to know what these guys think the potential AFC title game line is going to be. What is Cleveland at Baltimore? What do you guys make that?
So the challenge is going to be that it's whatever happens this week is going to impact what next week's number is, right?
Sure. Yeah. That's true. So Cleveland defeating the Chiefs would obviously inflate their market number. You might get a cheap price on the Ravens. I got you.
I would think so.
Okay. Love someone who's backing that double on the back of that. All right, let's move on. Rams Packers to wrap it up this week, guys. Let's take a look at the betting. Interesting one. The Rams 3.7 on the money line. You can back the Green Bay Packers is just under 1.34. 6.5 is the main point spread. Very even there. Slight support for the Packers. 45.5 is the total. That total is dropping, guys. I think it's up to 47. And there's been a bit of money around for the Rams as well. I'm not totally sure why. There's a lot of injury doubts. Aaron Donald's been bagged up with those ribs. I don't think we care who plays quarterback at this stage. It's not what's going to be on it. Anyone want to jump in here? Who's got the strongest lean? Hands in the air.
I'll go first. So I'll be quick here. I missed this market entirely. I had an appetite for Rams. The number's gone. I had an appetite for the under. The number is gone. I don't think I can reasonably get involved either way here at this point. Although a lot of the reasons that I like the Rams, digging in a little bit more, I'm starting to lose some confidence. I think that, without question, the Devontae Adams, Jalen Ramsey matchup, you can kind of zero in on that specifically. You could do a ton of homework on that matchup and try to make some decision. If Jalen Ramsey can stop Devontae Adams, then the Rams have a shot. If Devontae Adams, works Jalen Ramsey, then the Packers win pretty comfortably, in my opinion.
Rob, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is interesting because it's the Packers' first game without David Bakhtiari as well, going up against the defensive line where Aaron Donald gets talked about a lot, but that defensive line has really improved in recent weeks. Like Michael Brockers has been a big impact. Leonard Floyd last week had an amazing game, was all over the field. So we get to see what that looks like. And it's not one of these where, okay, Rodgers can just mitigate this pressure by getting the ball out quickly, because you have all these great cornerbacks for the Rams, right? You have Jalen Ramsey and Darius Williams and Troy Hill. Those are 3 of the top 18 cornerbacks as ranked by Pro Football Focus this year. That's about as good a chance as you have as slowing down Devontae Adams and this game, like this Packers offense where they have a lack of secondary weapons. Maybe that would lead you to believe that I would think about taking the Rams. It doesn't. I don't like the Rams at all, just in general, from an offensive perspective as well. Doesn't really matter who's playing quarterback for this week. You know that they're injured in some capacity. Like Wolford took a massive hit. I doubt he's going to play. Jared Goff, like an extra week of healing will help, but he was struggling badly. Like half of the throws were wobblers, like complete ducks, where it was clearly that's an issue for him. Now there's a potential that Cooper Kupp is out as well, which will make things so much tougher because Jair Alexander then just takes Robert Woods out of the game. And yes, the Packers D is vulnerable on the ground. You probably see a ton of that with Cam Akers. Like that was sort of the game plan against Seattle. Let's just force feed Cam Akers and see what happens. But I don't really see that as a big path to success for them, especially going up against the Packers defense who, yes, they're vulnerable to the run, but when all you really have to prepare for is the run, in my opinion, it makes it a little bit easier to defend. So for me, I know that the total's been moving down from 47 to 45.5. I personally would take a look at the first half under here, which I think is, depending where you're looking, 23, 22.5. I think those are both high. And the only reason I'm going to say first half is because Green Bay has this propensity to give up garbage time scores. They have all year. If you look at their EPA per play, when the game state is 10% to 90% for one team's win probability, they have the 7th best EPA per play on defense. When you stretch it out to a longer period of time, I think it's 13th or 14th best. They have given up some late scores, but you look at the opponents that they've gone up against recently, they've kept the scoring at a minimum over the past couple months. I don't think cold conditions are particularly going to help Jared Goff here either. So first half under, I think, is the best look in this game. And then potentially, if we do see more Rams money and Green Bay hits 6, I would consider getting involved with the Packers at that number.
22.5 is the total first half of Matchbook. Is that one you play, Rob?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Sumo, what are you thinking with this one? I'll be honest, I love this Rams defense. I think their coordinator, Brandon Staley's a real deal. And even as a Jets fan, I think he's one of the guys to be interviewed. If the Jets got him, I'd be quite happy. But is there enough there to slow down Green Bay? And offensively, can the Rams generate, enough offense to keep up with the Packers there?
So first of all, a friend of mine who is a big tape guy, he watched some all 22 of the Rams defense today against the Seahawks, and he said he had more questions after it than before because they are playing such a complex defense, switching coverages, pattern matching, all that stuff.
But isn't that the beauty of it? That's what offense can't do the match up with.
Yeah, exactly. So I won't have a bet on this game, but it's the game I'm most excited about because I want to see how the Rams defense plays against this Packers offense and how Matt LaFleur uses Devontae Adams. So either Jalen Ramsey is going to travel, but he didn't do that a lot in the past. So if they motion Adams around the formation, maybe they drop 2 players on him, play some disguised double coverage. I don't really know. I'm excited to see that. I will say this: if you told me, or if you could guarantee me that Jared Goff could get his shit together for one game and plays closer to his career average, I think the Rams would be live in this game. Absolutely.
No guarantee on that. No guarantee.
No, absolutely no guarantee. I think the current market price is completely fair. Jared Goff, 9 fingers right now, cold weather. He has been a below average quarterback this season. Maybe Cooper Kupp is out. So this makes it very tough and lots of uncertainty. So I'm not going to get involved, but I think this is going to be this could be a very good game.
Yeah, potentially a very good game. First game on Saturday night. I do like that first half under total there. Drew, final comment on that one, Matt?
I think this is a good game to look for a second half angle.
Okay.
If the Rams are winning or it's close, I think the Rams are a play in the second half. McVay's second half adjustments this season have been unbelievably good. Maybe he's on a heater and that's cool and he cools off finally. But it's been unreal seeing what he's done in the second half of these games. And I think if the Packers are winning, the second half over is a smash.
If the Rams are winning, we're going to get the stat of McVay never losing a game with the Rams.
That's a good one. Yeah,
that's a good
one. Yeah, I've seen that a few times this week.
I don't love the Packers in a comeback though at all. No, in this. No, against the pass rush that the Rams can manifest. If this obvious passing downs, I think the Packers are in a little bit of a tight spot.
All right. We got the best guys. Just want to bring in one or two quick comments. Just for the guys watching on YouTube, can you open Matchbook in the UK, Gio? You can, of course. And Tom Beery has done my work for me. Matchbook is available in the UK. Player props every week I will sign up. And just on that, I have one or two of these. They will be available on Matchbook on Thursday. There's two I like in the Ravens and Bills over Mark Andrews receiving yards of 54.5. And under Marquise Brown, matchup there against the Bills is Tre'Davious White. Not a great one. So Marquise Brown, I think, will be held in check in a major way. They will be available on Matchbook on Thursday. Right, guys, let's move on. Let's wrap it up. Divisional weekend best bets. I'd suggest there are probably some of them that we already have up on the screen already. But Suma, you're in the clubhouse with your winner last week, mate. Where are you going for your best bet this week?
I can only take the Bills because it's my only bet so far. So Bills minus 2.5. I'm very confident in that one, and best
to be fair to I like that one. Rob Pizzola, your best bet of the weekend.
Yeah, last time I aligned with Suma on a best bet, we got smoked with the Eagles against the Cowboys. But I mean,
do it again.
I'll do it for you, Drew. I'll do it for you. I'll give you a fighting chance on the Ravens. I like the Bills a lot this week, and I know I've generally been high on the Bills in the latter half of the year, but I mean, to me, the number is really short. I think there's some potentially built-in priors on the Ravens here that are where the market is at right now. So Bills as well.
All right, Drew, wrap it up for us. Your best bet of the weekend, Matt.
This was easy because it's the only bet I made so far, but the Browns. We'll take the Browns and the points.
Yeah, one of those weekends. We had 7 selections last week. We're doubling down with only 3 this week, but that's all right. I think there are 3 solid enough looks. And yeah, look, I think in play is a massive thing again this weekend. I won't be watching second half lines as ever. Drew, you guys doing periscopes this week for the second half lines?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Good stuff.
We're gonna take them more seriously this week.
Yeah. You're not going to be on the beach this time, so no.
Oh no! In the lab. For sure.
Are you saying no Twitter fleets this week of sunsets and sunrises? And,
probably.
Rob loves those, man.
I look out the window right now and I see snow, and then I check my phone and I see Drew like tweeting pictures of the ocean, and I'm like, get out of here. Drew.
Amazing. You're on the same country, or the same landmass, but you might as well be in a different universe there.
Exactly.
Right, guys. Thanks as ever. We'll be back next week. Conference finals. Wow. This is our penultimate podcast of the season. Been an absolute blast as ever with you guys. Best of luck at your divisional weekend bets, and we will chat to you next Thursday. Take care, or next Wednesday even. Take care.